Om Siddhim Prapto Yata Brahma Tatapnoti Nivodhame Samasena Eva Kaunteya Nishtha Jnanasya Yapara Buddhya Vishuddhaya Yukto Dhrityatmanam Niyamyacha Shabdadhin Vishayanks Tyaktva Ragadvesho Vyadasya Cha Viviktise Vilaghvashi Yatava Kayamanasaha Dhyana Yoga Paro Nityam Vairagyam Samupashrida Ahankaram Balam Darpam Kamam Krodham Parigraham Vimuchya Nirmama Shanto Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Learn from me in brief, O son of Kunti, how, after reaching perfection in actionlessness, one attains to Brahman, the supreme consummation of knowledge, endowed with a pure intellect, subduing the body and senses with determination, renouncing the objects of the senses, such as sound and the like, rejecting attachment and hatred, resorting to a solitary spot, eating but little, controlling body, mind, and speech, ever engaged in the practice of meditation, possessed of dispassion, forsaking egotism, power, pride, lust, anger, and greed, free from the sense of possession and tranquil. Such a person is fit for becoming Brahman. This is the topic that we began last month. Some of you may have noticed that I was supposed to speak on something else today, but I forgot that I had started a series. Anyhow, it's complicated, but so I hope nobody minds. It was listed as Buddha and Shankara. Yeah. I've done that before. I'll do it again sometime. Anyhow, this is the 4 verses that we've been going through from Bhagavad Gita in chapter 18, verses 50, 51, 52, and 53. And I am going to start by reviewing a little bit of what we went through last session. We have this phrase, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpite. It occurs also in chapter 14. Chapter 14 is the chapter that deals with the 3 gunas and transcending the 3 gunas. And we have the same type of thing, that it goes through a whole list of different qualifications and virtues, especially this idea of going beyond the 3 gunas and attaining to equanimity and same-sightedness. And then Sri Krishna says, and he who serves me with unswerving devotion, having gone beyond the 3 gunas, is fit for becoming Brahman, that same phrase. And then we have a nearly identical phrase in the 2nd chapter, Sa amritatvaya kalpite, he is fit for attaining to immortality. These all mean basically the same thing. So what do we mean by becoming Brahman? Now this phrase to me is a very unhappy phrase, because Brahman means perfection. Brahman means our real nature. We never deviate from that. We're already that. So becoming Brahman is a little bit of a concession to our present understanding that we're ordinary people, that we have our faults and our failings and our weaknesses and everything, and that we want to become something that we're not. We really want to become something that we are. We already are that, but we just have to realize it. So this phrase, becoming Brahman, is similar to the phrase that knower of Brahman becomes a Brahman. Now we have 2 problems. One is that we never really know Brahman the way we know anything else, and we don't become Brahman the way we become something else also. But we know basically what it means, that we want to realize our true nature. We want to realize our perfection. When Swamiji says each soul is potentially divine, if we want to nitpick, we can say that this is a silly statement. Each soul is divine, not potentially divine. But what Swamiji means is that we all have the potential to realize our true nature, to realize our own perfection. Now, the paradoxical thing is that we have to perfect the mind to a certain extent in order to realize the perfection of the self. So it's not like we can simply say, yes, I'm already perfect, the job's done. There's nothing to do. Of course, we have different spiritual traditions where they'll say that. You don't have to meditate, you don't have to do this, don't have to do anything, and just realize that you're already perfect. It sounds nice, but unless the mind is fit for it, it won't work. So this is the whole point, to make the mind, make ourselves fit for realizing our own true nature. So these 4 verses give us a very nice list of qualities and spiritual practices and virtues to attain that will help us become fit for this. The reason I mentioned the other 2, chapter 14 and chapter 2, is so we don't think this is some type of exclusive list, that there are all different ways of understanding what we have to do to accomplish the task, what types of problems that we have, what things are blocking our ability to make progress in spiritual life. But there's something charming about these 4 verses. So I'm going to go through each of the different things that's mentioned, but I want to spend give particular attention to this idea of endowed with the pure intellect. That this is key to really all of them. If we can attain to this type of purity, then we'll find that almost all of the other problems are taken care of. So this whole section, another reason I like it is that it covers all of the different spiritual paths. It's not just jnana yoga. We think this becoming Brahman everything has to do with this intellect and deeper understanding. But we see that we'll have this idea of one-pointedness and devotion and love for the path of devotion, and this concentration of mind for Raja Yoga, and becoming selfless agent of action, offering everything, the path of Jnana Yoga. All of these things are different ways to reach that state where we're fit for realizing our own perfection, if we want to put it that way. So we're all fit on one level, because we're already perfect, that we just have to realize it. The question is when and how. And this is partly up to us and partly not up to us. Because if we look at all of the qualities that are enumerated, we think that it'll be impossible, that it is too difficult a task. How can we go beyond all of these human frailties that we have? So we get the answer that we do our part and grace does the rest of it. So this is, we have to at least recognize that we have to make some type of effort. But this grace will take care of everything, because this is our birthright. We're born for this. This is something that everyone will achieve. A question of sooner or later. Sri Ramakrishna gives a beautiful illustration. If you ever go to Belur Math on any of these big celebration days, and now it's different, they have a dining hall and everything, but it used to be a long line, and you would go and get prasad in hand. He said everyone will get fed. Some are in line in the beginning, they'll get fed earlier. Some will be last in line, they'll get fed at the end, but no one will go without getting fed. That means that everyone eventually will all have this realization of our own true nature. Or, if we want to put it in other terms, we'll all attain to that state of devotion. See, the devotee doesn't really care for becoming Brahman, all of that. They want to have a little separation. They want to have this beautiful, loving relationship with a personal God. all of these things make one fit for that also. So this is really a question of how do we qualify ourselves for making progress in spiritual life. So now, this question of fit, what exactly does it mean? We talked last time about this idea of adhikara. Adhikara, if we take this fitness to mean eligible, who is eligible to have the highest type of realization, or even to long for that realization, even to practice it, even to think that it's something realistic. So from that point of view, everyone is eligible. Now, there may have been times where these were restricted ideas, that you had to belong to a certain level of society and everything, but when we get to Bhagavad Gita, it's very, very clear that even the worst sinner, even the outcast, no matter what strata of society one is from, everyone is eligible. So this idea of adhikara for eligible means we're all eligible. Now, if fit means, are we really fit for the job? That means, have we checked off all of the boxes, everything necessary in order to have that realization? None of us are fit. Again, it's a question of degree. Some, of course, will be a little bit more qualified than others, but if we really think that we have to be 100% fit for all of this, then it'll be a little bit, we'll feel a little bit depressed over the whole thing. But the whole point is that we just have to do our part. We walk that one step, and God walks 10 steps towards us. I like this illustration of a seesaw. If you have a seesaw and you're standing on one side and you want to walk to the other side, you have to walk a little bit uphill till you get to the middle, and then you go a little bit over, and all of a sudden it just goes down on its own, and no more walking, you slide the rest of the way. So this is what we find, at least we're told, in spiritual life, that we just have to reach this fulcrum point. We have to reach some point, and then we get pulled in. Then this idea of grace comes. Sri Ramakrishna gives another nice example, that the world is like a small magnet, and God is a big magnet. And we're too close to the small magnet, so that attracts us. No matter how big the other one is, we're too far from it. So he says, if you just walk a little bit closer and closer and closer, then the big magnet, the power of that will be so strong, it'll pull us the rest of the way. So when we read all of these things, what are these qualifications and everything, we have to understand that we just have to meet a certain level of it. Where the mind will never become perfect, because it's a human mind. And we'll always have our weaknesses and our frailties and everything, but we have to at least make that self-effort. So this is that critical thing. So if we really understand what it means to be fit for becoming Brahman, fit for realization, we'll know that if we're fit, then we'll have it. How do I know I'm not fit for it? Because I'm not a God-realized soul. That this fitness that they're talking about is that final rung of the ladder, the final step right before the roof. Once we reach that stage of really fitness, when we've purified everything and we're free from selfishness and the passions and everything, then it'll be automatic. It'll be automatic at that point. So we're all in between. We're all striving to reach that state of purification. And if we get that, then that'll be the real test of the fitness. So this one phrase, endowed with the pure intellect, is very key. That what does it mean, first of all, and how do we do it? How do we purify our minds, purify our hearts? One thing is that we have to recognize the need to cultivate all of these virtues. Sometimes we may think that it's just a question of intellectually understanding something, or even a question of developing enough concentration of mind that we can sit for meditation and the mind will get merged in something higher. The truth of it is that unless the heart is pure, the mind is pure, that we won't be able to concentrate the mind, and we won't be able to have a free mind that can really discriminate deeply about what's real and what's unreal, what's true and what's false. So we have to recognize this need. Then we have to have the desire to undergo some type of practice, some type of spiritual practice. It's not going to happen on its own. It's not just this purification process. It means that we have to really do some very serious meditation, japa, prayer, whatever our spiritual practice is. We have to do it with a real type of devotion. So this is why I want to really concentrate on this idea, buddhya vishuddhaya yuktaha, endowed with a pure buddhi, intellect, because it's the key to the whole thing. So this is why Sri Ramakrishna says this pure mind is the same as a pure intellect, the same as the pure self. This is why Christ says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. This idea of purification, not in a puritanical sense, but a purification of the mind and heart, is key to every religious tradition. And no matter if we're following the path of devotion or the path of action, if we're philosophical in nature, it doesn't matter. We have to go through this process of purification. And different ways of understanding it. We have different images that we have, that if the mind is like water, then that water has to be perfectly pure if we want to get a clear reflection. It has to be perfectly still and perfectly pure to get that type of reflection, to see our face looking in that water. If the water is muddy, we won't see it. If the surface is disturbed, everything will be disturbed. So we have these different ways of understanding what happens when the mind becomes pure, when the mind becomes still, the mind becomes empty. All different ways of understanding this. So this perfect state of perfect purity, here there's an emphasis on buddhi. Why the intellect specifically? We have these three different aspects that we talk about sometimes, the purity of heart and purity of mind, and here we have this purity of intellect. So what's the basic distinction that we're talking about here? Now, in the Sankhya system, this antakarana, this inner organ, is divided into four different things. We have four different categories, four different names. This citta, which we can think of as memory, and this ahankara, think of the sense of I, and manas is a mind, and buddhi is intellect. Now, the mistake that I think we make sometimes is to think that there are four really different things, just like we have different organs. We have a heart that pumps the blood and gets oxygen. We have the lungs that breathe. We have the liver, the kidneys. They all have their own separate function. They're all separate organs. Mind is one. The mind is one. We break it into different categories because of different functions. That's all. If we're talking about our emotional life, if we're talking about our intellectual life, it all takes place within the mind. So there's not that real hard and fast distinction between any of these. Sometimes somebody will say, no, that's not the mind, that's not manas, that's buddhi. It's all the same thing. There's all overlap, and the distinction between manas and buddhi that we have is that the mind will take in things. It'll perceive things through the senses, and it'll sort them out and tell us what they are, and then buddhi will tell us what to do about it. Nishchayatmika buddhi. They say that'll make some determination. It's all the mind. It's all the mind. When it's functioning in one way, we use a different term. That's all. We may say that this buddhi, intellect or intelligence, that this is not present in all creatures and in human beings, not until a certain age, if we want to have that type of distinction. But it's just the maturity of the mind, or the evolution of the mind, we can say. This buddhi is supposed to be responsible for this feeling of I, and this ability to reflect on things. So we can ask, what about animals? What about dogs? I like dogs. I'm a dog lover. Do dogs have this buddhi? Do they have that intelligence where they can actually make decisions? Huh? Anybody? Yeah. I fully believe, yeah, when you see how they can be so loyal, how they can, almost all animals, how they can deny themselves to feed others in the family, how they can go through danger and everything just out of love, how they can experience that. Now, what does that mean? It means that their mind has developed a little bit of this, what we call buddhi. So it's just a scale. It's not, they're not separate things. Does it have this? Does it have that? No. It's not like, does it have a kidney, and does it have liver, and does it have a heart? It's just how the mind develops. So this buddhi, this is what will make thoughtful decisions. The mind can distinguish things and sort things out and everything, but to make discriminative types of decisions, this is the role that we give for buddhi. So this idea, first of all, purification of heart. So what do we mean by purification of heart? To me, it means the passions. Now we're talking about the emotional life. That we know that we have all of these tamasic and rajasic tendencies, that we have the different passions, kama, krodha, lobha, lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, all of these different things that don't allow us to act freely in this world, that exert such a pressure on us that they color all of our decisions. This is why this intellect, we can't have this pure intellect until we take care of the other stuff. That will color everything. So this purification of the heart means getting rid of all these lower tendencies. Now, purification of the mind. To me, that means a mind that's peaceful and calm. Now, we have two ways of understanding this pure mind. One, we have this actually a Buddhistic idea, which is very similar to the Vedantic idea, that pure mind is no mind. That means that the mind is still, the mind is almost not functioning, or so one-pointed that it practically disappears. So this will be the sense in which Ramakrishna says that this pure mind is one with the pure buddhi, is one with the pure Atman. So that'll be, if we think of this ocean of consciousness and the waves, once that wave disappears, then it's absolutely one with the ocean. There's no way to distinguish it from that. So this purification of the mind will also have to do with making this mind perfectly still. Otherwise, it means a mind that's not tainted by the passions of the heart. See, what happens is that our thoughts get contaminated by the passions of the heart. Some of you may remember, I've spoken on this idea of toxins of the mind. And if we think of the mind as space with the air and with molecules and everything, then all of the air molecules will be like thoughts. But the impurities of the air, the pollution and everything, these come and they cling to the air molecules. They float around and they cling to them. So these are the things that will cling to our thoughts. So when we see people, then we'll have some anger or hostility or judge them somehow, all because it goes back to the heart. This is the key. The heart is the key, because that's what will influence the way the mind works. Now, when we want to go from the mind to the intellect, then we'll see the same thing, that our decisions are based on the way the mind understands things, and the mind is covered by the impurities of the heart, the passions and things like that. So we find that initially we have to deal with this idea of kama, krodha, lobha, all of these different things, these passions that really make life miserable for us. This is the thing, that it's not an ethical question, a moral question. If we want to be practical people and we observe why we don't have any sense of peace and calm and quiet and everything, it's because the mind is in turmoil over all of these unchecked emotions that we have. Now, I don't want to paint such a bad picture. Many of us, of course, have a great degree of calmness, and we're not always angry and everything, but there'll be some element of that. We can observe that at some time or another, we all get angry. At some time or another, we all feel jealousy or greed, different things like that. And we have to deal with these different things. So this idea of desire, this kama. Kama is the first one. This is the key to everything. It can mean lust or it can mean desire. The lust in particular, desire in general, all types of desires can have an effect on the mind. Some very strong desires can just drag us around. Yeah, there are people who have such a tremendous desire for wealth or for fame that every second of their lives they're thinking about these things. Yeah. So Sri Ramakrishna, he's a very practical person. Sometimes we say, get rid of all desires. He's a very practical person. He says, no, some desires you fulfill. Some desires you observe. Some desires you test out, you experiment. Is it really what you thought it would be? Some desires you just say no. You just stay away from them. Some we observe other people. This is what the intelligent person does. The normal person has to stick his own finger in the fire. The intelligent person watches somebody else stick their finger in the fire. Yeah. Usually we have to do it ourselves if we want to really learn. So these are all different ways that that we deal with this question of desire. And if we can understand that desire comes from some feeling of lack, that there's something that we don't possess that can make us happy, if we understand that we already possess it, that the real desire, longing for something higher, and is misplaced. If we can understand that, then that will also be very helpful. Then we get to things like anger. Anger is the most poisonous of all of them. Yes, Sri Ramakrishna talks about the lust and greed. I think anger is the worst myself. That this really, we lose all sense of ourselves. We can see red. We can say things that we can't believe that we're saying. We're watching ourselves say things, and we say, oh my God, I'm going to really be sorry. This anger is really a type of poison. This is really tamas, the worst type of tamas. So what do? First of all, we have to recognize that we're suffering. We're the ones who are suffering when we get angry. We think it's justifiable anger. That, that person deserves to hear me yell at them. But we're just causing ourselves, our mind, to get completely upset. So we have to observe all of these things, realize that they're not helpful for us, that we're the ones who are suffering. Then greed. If we understand that, first of all, who owns anything? We get to use things for a certain period of time. We don't really own them. And if we have too many things, then they own us. We get controlled by our possessions. And if we realize the joy that comes from not having that feeling of owning things and not this possessiveness, and being free with everything, not holding on and always being afraid of losing things. If we realize that, there's a freedom that comes from it, then this is the first step. Then we can free ourselves from that. We have this beautiful phrase from the Ishopanishad, that first verse, Ma gridha kashyasvid dhanam. Don't covet anybody's wealth, because who owns anything? Like the maidservant, that she's working in the house, and she's looking after the children. She knows that it's not my house, they're not my children. She has her own place in the country and everything. Yeah. So if we can have that attitude, then we can learn to transcend this feeling of greed, especially if we see that the more possessions that we get, there's no formula. The more things we own, the happier we are. It usually, it just doesn't work. Now, there's some things, of course, that we can have some things that we get that we like, and we enjoy it. And it's okay. We don't all have to live under a tree. We can have a nice house and decorate it nicely and everything, but we have to not be attached, that's all. Yeah, we have to learn how to just have a light hand with everything, to be able to let things go. The other way of looking at all of this is that we have to have an inner life. If we understand the real nature of the self, if we practice meditation, contemplation, then all these other things, these different changes in the mind that we don't take so seriously, if we understand ourselves to be the witness, then we can just observe the mind. This is a phenomenon of the mind. I want something. The phenomenon of the mind, I'm angry. That the mind is temporarily in a state of anger. And I'm watching, I'm observing. So this identification with the states of the mind, these different emotions and everything, if we can learn not to own them, just to observe them. We don't claim them. We can almost watch them as if they belong to somebody else. If we learn to do all of this, then they'll lose their power over us. So this idea of dispassion, be the witness, observe all of these things, and then, as Sri Ramakrishna says, if these passions are so strong within us, then give them a twist, utilize them. Be angry that you haven't realized God. You have to feel pride. Be proud to be a devotee. Just take it away, take the worldliness out of it somehow, and spiritualize it. So these are all elements of purification of heart. It all has to do with these different passions. Now, purification of the mind, this is, as I said, not terribly different. They all belong to the same thing, but these passions, they color the mind. So what we want to do is somehow let the mind be able to be free from all of these things. So the mind and intellect that are not colored by that, they have a chance of being a little bit objective, we can say, and to be able to make sensible decisions in this world. We never make sensible decisions if we're angry, or if we have a tremendous desire for something, or if we're envious, jealous, and everything. The mind doesn't work that way. So we have this purification of the heart, which allows the mind to attain to a state of tranquility. We have these beautiful phrases in Gita chapter 2 that this prasada, and other places in Gita also, mana prasada, this clarity of mind is a type of grace of the mind. When the mind gets to that state where it's a calm, it's not disturbed by other things, this is a type of grace. As Sri Ramakrishna quotes the very nice Bengali song, we may have the grace of God, we may have the grace of the Guru, we have the grace of the devotees. Unless we have the grace of the mind, nothing matters. Nothing adds up to anything. So we need to have that type of grace of the mind. Now, all of this will get us to buddhi and this idea of discrimination. Very often we hesitate to use this word discrimination because it has a very negative connotation. But it has a very positive connotation. It has both. As someone who is a discriminating type of intelligence means that they can distinguish between one thing and another thing. So there will be some people that they're connoisseur tea drinkers, connoisseur of tea. They can just by one sip, they can tell you, did it come from a good tea garden? Was it aged a certain length of time? All different things like that. Other people, they can't tell one from the other. So that type of discriminating faculty is a sign of thoughtfulness, and we have to develop that type of discrimination. Ultimately, of course, it'll have to do what's important in life, what's not important, what's helpful, what's not helpful, what's constantly changing, and what's real and eternal. It'll eventually come to that. But that type of discriminating faculty, this belongs to buddhi. Now, what happens is that the same discriminating faculty, when this mind is not pure and not developed, it really becomes a prejudicial type of thing, discrimination. And this discrimination, this is what the mind does when it makes associations. That we associate one thing with another that we've seen once or twice, and we think it always happens that way. Sometimes we reverse things. It's cause and effect. Suppose somebody sees that every morning when the rooster will crow, the sun comes up. So they say, yes. Well, what causes the sun to come up? The crowing of the rooster. Yeah. So we do this. We kind of reverse these things. And so this buddhi will come to wrong conclusions about things based on this lack of clarity of the mind. See how they're all interrelated. I remember a very nice illustration that I heard once. I studied Hindi for 1 year. I forgot all of it. Yeah, so don't try to speak to me in Hindi. Not all of it. I didn't remember a little bit. But we had a very nice Hindi professor. I liked him very much. In fact, he came here not long ago. Yeah. I saw him after so many years, after 45 years or something like that. Very nice man. Anyhow, in Hindi, as in many Indian languages, Bengali also, there are 3 different forms of you. So there's tu, tum, ap. Okay. So somebody was asking him, how do we know what's the difference when you use one and one? So he told us a story. He had a very good friend who was a kind of a follower of Gandhi. He used to wear this homespun, this khadi, everything, just very ordinary looking shirt and pajama pant kind of thing. The same thing that any typical poor person would wear, or a worker or something like that. So his friend came one day, and his father was there. And the father didn't know who he was. The father's a nice man, so he went up to ask. He asked, who are you? What do you do and everything? And he was a two form. He was much older, yeah, and it looks like just, maybe a poor person or a simple person, uneducated person. He wasn't trying to be insulting. And so that man said, I'm a teacher. And then he said, oh, tum teacher? So immediately it switched to the higher one. And then he said, where do you teach? He said, oh, I'm a professor at the university. He said, oh, a professor? Yeah. So we assume things. We by the dress and everything, we assume that somebody is not worthy of respect or anything. We don't know them. Yeah. So this is that problem with buddhi. I always remember that. It was a nice illustration. He said another interesting thing. Somebody asked him, what form do you use when you talk to your wife in private? And he thought for a minute. He said, we don't have privacy in India. And yeah, nice man. Yeah, so the sense of discrimination, it depends on our mood also. This buddhi is a very funny thing. We think that we can really be very reasonable people, and sometimes it turns out that instead of discriminating, we're rationalizing. I do this myself. I do that all the time with regard to food. Yeah. After eating, I tell myself, I'm not going to do it again. Yeah. That I know there's fried foods and things, they don't agree with me, and I'm not going to do it again. And I get in the scale, and I say, I've gained a couple of pounds. Tomorrow I'll be better. Then the next day, I see, and then how do I use my buddhi then? Life is short. Yeah. Why not enjoy yourself a little bit? Always tomorrow. We can start tomorrow, right? Yeah. Same buddhi, same intellect. So this is how that intellect works. That we have to have, when we have a sharp intellect, that means that it's not dependent upon our mood, it's not dependent upon any type of bias or prejudice or anything, that then it becomes something very clear and very sharp. And this is that type of buddhi, of intellect, that we need for this existential prejudice. What is the existential prejudice? That I am the body, mind, and senses, that I'm limited individual, that I'm weak, I don't know very much, that I'm not very smart, that all of the things that we say about ourselves, this is an existential prejudice, when the real truth is that we are that infinite absolute reality. We are that Brahman. That we're trying to become fit for becoming Brahman. We are that already. So this is that type of discrimination that we need. This is the positive side. Sri Ramakrishna gives the example of the swan. There's a belief in India that swan has the ability to separate the milk, that it has some type of acid that it can excrete into the milk to separate curds from whey, and it can just take the curd and leave the whey behind. Yeah. So it can take the valuable part, the healthy part and everything, and the rest it can leave behind. So he said we have to become like that. This is a Paramahamsa. That the Paramahamsa is able to distinguish between what's of real value and what's of passing value. When we talk about Shreyas and Preyas, Shreyas, the ultimate good, Preyas is in between. Preyas, what's pleasurable, we shouldn't take that to mean something that's awful. It's just not going to get us to the highest goal. That's all. It is not that there's something wrong about enjoying life and having some pleasures and everything, but at some point we have to be able to distinguish between choosing that which will just be enjoyable and choosing that which will allow us to become fit for becoming Brahman, fit for some higher type of spiritual experience. So this pure intellect is the type of intellect that can observe and say that I'm not this body, I am not the mind, I'm not the senses, that I'm the witness, I'm the observer. The body is born, the body dies, I was never born, I never die. I'm the one with that infinite absolute reality. What I call the soul within is just a reflection in the mind of that infinite absolute sun of knowledge. This is a pure intellect. We have to be endowed with that type of intellect that is able to transcend this existential prejudice that I'm just this flawed human being that you're looking at. From the point of view of the mind will have its good points and bad points. But if we know the real nature of the self, then we're beyond all of that. So this is why I wanted to spend a little extra time on this. We see now these three stages. That most important is to somehow get rid of this tamas and rajas of the mind. Somehow get rid of the passions of the heart that allow the mind to become calm and quiet and a little free from prejudice, which will allow the intellect to be able to observe things clearly and to really be able to see what's of value in life. This idea, we have all these terms, vastu, that sometimes we just take in philosophical terms, what is real and what is unreal. But it really means what's of ultimate value in life from a higher point of view. What's of ultimate value in life and what is only just some transitory type of enjoyable thing. What's the real substance? If we want to know, and then who is an individual? There's a person of substance. It means not just the Atman dwelling within, but some principle, some purity, some ability to distinguish things clearly and everything. All this idea of purification. So it all starts with this purification of the heart, and then the mind, and then the ability to really distinguish one thing from another, and from that highest point of view, to know our real nature, and not to be stuck in this idea that we're small, limited, flawed people, that to go beyond all of that. So this is that first stage in making ourselves fit for becoming Brahman is actually too narrow. It makes us fit for making progress in spiritual life and getting closer to this ultimate goal that we're trying to achieve. So I'll stop here, and the next session, I think we'll finish. I think we go through all of the other things. I wanted to spend extra time on this, but all of the other things that are mentioned in those 4 verses. So we can take a few minutes now and just sit quietly.